is Craig McIver. He is a drummer, percussionist, classical and jazz performing artist. He's also a composer, and he's from Philadelphia, and we are interviewing him today. When did you start with music? When did you realize that you had a musical ability?
I remember when I was about 5, 6 years old.
And what do you remember about that?
That I was living here, and my grandmother, well, first of all, my family was totally against me being a musician. Completely against that. But anyway, I used to take my grandmother's cookie, the can she kept cookies in.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe she'd buy some cookies.
Yeah.
And I had these paper clips.
Yeah.
And I would put them down at the bottom of when she finished eating all the cookies. I'd take it out of the trash and put paper clips on the bottom of them. What the paper clips represented was the snares. There's snares under a snare drum.
Wow.
I'll show you a snare drum later so you know what I'm talking about. But it was, and then I put that to make the snare drum sound. And I would go out in the street and play with all my friends and show them I could do this. And I would beat right there on the porch.
Oh my gosh, I never knew
that.
When
I was about 5 years old. And what made me like the snare drum because when she took me to see Barnum and Bailey Circus and I heard the snare drum roll, I said, oh, I like that sound. But the tin can didn't have that sound.
Wow.
So when I got the paper clips and put it down, it vibrated and made that sound.
Right.
So that's how. Yeah.
Wow. And you were about 5, 6?
About 5. I was about 5 doing that.
Yeah. Wow. And when did you start taking lessons?
Well, there was a time in the schools that they had music programs. And all the music schools, I mean all those high schools, it didn't matter what location you was in.
Right.
I just happened to go to the schools where they had music programs. And so that was how I initially, got involved because I was...
Did you take private lessons or were they just were you in band? Or?
That was later. Yeah, well, I mean... so
you were getting
the age, you're saying the age, I think the first time I really truly had professional lessons, you gotta, excuse me, because I don't have all this stuff in my head right away, but I was very lucky for my first teacher, extremely lucky, because my grandfather, on my father's side, he wanted me to play drums.
That was
so it was Les.
Yeah.
So he brought me a drum set, and they kept it over there. So when I came over there, I could play them. It just so happened that this drummer named Philly Joe Jones, who was the original drummer with Miles Davis, he made all the recordings with Miles Davis, the first group with Coltrane, Red Garland, and Paul Chambers. Well, his brother worked for my grandfather.
Wow.
So my grandfather, the Philly Joe's brother, took me to see Philly Joe. It's like 11 or 12. So that was kind of like, not so much my first teacher, but he's a guy I used to follow around when I was a little kid, and he would show me a couple things here or there.
Right.
That's kind of how it started. And then, after that, my grandmother, who didn't want me to play drums, started getting jealous because I started liking to hang with my grandfather because he left me. So she wouldn't allow the drum set to come in her house. So what she did was she paid for professional lessons, real professional. That's how that happened with this guy named Armin Santorelli, who was a disciple of this guy drummer named Joe Morello. Joe Morello was the original drummer with Dave Brubeck and Paul Desmond.
Oh, get out of here!
And he's the famous tune they wrote was Take 5. That's the tune that everybody knew.
Right.
So when I was about 12 and 13, I was hanging out with Joe Morello. The guy would see. So my exposure was the very best.
Yeah.
However, when I came back here, I wasn't allowed to have the music here because they considered it the devil's music. Because they were highly religious and this, that, and the other thing. So, however, I still was in the community. Still was in that community, so
community.
everything is very second nature to me when it comes to playing certain types of music where they, at that time, they had a little bit in the high schools in our neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say our neighborhoods because when I say our neighborhoods, maybe the lower income neighborhoods and the where they don't have them now. They don't have, but they have them. Like where I live now, the schools, they put it way up high. It's very important for every child
Mm-hmm.
play an instrument. However,
Mm-hmm.
this neighborhood, they come in this house, they won't even know the names of these instruments.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even know. They'll come in and say, "Well, what's that? I never seen one of those."
And they don't
It's
know
very
the difference
unfortunate.
between-
However, you go where my home is, everybody knows the names. They know who played them.
Right.
It's a whole educational thing. But you didn't ask me all that, did you?
No, but that's okay. Keep going. Keep going. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
That's good.
So I don't know what else to say about that, but I've been very lucky that way at a younger